Chris Hines is a Colorado councilman who had to participate in a debate to be able to have eligibility for a large sum of campaign finance money. Here's the issue. When Chris showed up at the debate, found out that it was not wheelchair accessible. Hines is a longtime advocate for the disabled, and when got to the debate venue, found out it wasn't ADA accessible. They tried a couple of different things. None of them good, none of them should be necessary. The first was to lift both him and his chair onto the stage. Apparently, the combined weight with the chair weighing 400 pounds, it's electric, would be 600 pounds. That wasn't a possibility. So he had to leave his chair, hoist himself onto the stage, and then crawl because there was no accessibility for the actual wheelchair. He says he felt humiliated. He said it was a choice between my campaign's viability or my dignity. I was effectively just lying on the stage. Because of the rules, if he hadn't participated by being on that stage and participating in the debate, he could have had to forfeit roughly $125,000 in campaign financing because you have to be a part of the debate as a candidate. The debate was eventually moved to the floor in front of the stage, but he says at that point the damage was already done. And so none of this, it's 2023. How is this a possibility? How are you still having debates in places that aren't ADA compliant? Anna, what do you think?
I think it's awful. I mean, I think his quote about dignity, it just really hit me hard because that's exactly right. I mean, it's treating a man who has a disability with absolutely no dignity. And think about it, it's a debate, right? And so I hate that this is true, but when it comes to debating, it's not just about the topics at hand and whether or not you can make a good argument that's backed by evidence. It's also about optics. You know, the one debate that gets brought up quite often, it was the debate between Richard Nixon and JFK. JFK was wearing makeup, he looked young, he looked fresh, confident, and Richard Nixon was getting over a cold or something, and he looked terrible. And so that ended up having an impact on the outcome of the debate in terms of what people thought about it, who they thought won. And watching a candidate treated like that, crawling on a stage, it's disgusting. All of it is disgusting. I can't believe they didn't prepare ahead of time and ensure that there were appropriate measures taken to ensure that he would be able to participate without that happening.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you, by the way, for providing that historic context around the Nixon JFK debate. To be fair, I want to add extra context, which is that if Nixon had not been getting over a cold, he still would have looked like dog food. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He was gonna look bad compared to JFK regardless, but you're 100% right. And that is considered to have been a very important part of that race. In any event, you mentioned optics. Optics are already bad. Here's some worse optics. Officials at the school say that if they'd had more time, something could have been figured out, but Hines arrived just before the debate started. Are you implying that it's his fault that it wasn't compliant with the law?
Unbelievable.
That's a bad direction to go. The more time that you had was all of the time before the debate. The law wasn't passed 5 minutes before the debate. It's decades old. You could have been compliant in advance. Anyway, I am assuming, maybe just hoping, that this opens up a conversation where people can learn about the need to have a little bit of empathy and also comply with the law as stated. We'll have to see about that. Chris Hines, of course, as I pointed out, is a longtime advocate. So, hopefully they at least listen. By the way, we got a comment from Wheelie Snarky Dragon. It says, John, last year was the first year Oscars had access for wheelchairs. 2020.
What?
I don't understand how any of this is going on. And obviously there's this ongoing conversation about wheelchair access and accommodations on airplanes. And that story over the last couple of years has been devastating, not just because of the mistreatment of people, but also like bad injuries and death that have resulted because of that mistreatment. So I don't know, it seems like it's time for a national conversation around this, long overdue. Okay, with that, any other thoughts, Anna, before we move on?
No, the one final thing I'll say about it is, sometimes you run into some difficult questions. For instance, right now there's a pretty big controversy happening in LA over the removal of trees in order to fix some of the sidewalks that have been kind of destroyed by the tree's roots, right? So, disabled people who need wheelchairs are having difficulty getting around because they can't get past the completely destroyed sidewalk. But at the same time, the city's like, we're gonna have to uproot like 12,000 trees. So sometimes there are, I think, good people who have good intentions on both sides, and there could be a little bit of a conflict there. But I hope that there is some other solution so both parties can be happy. I obviously don't want to cut down trees, but at the same time, we need to make our cities, make our buildings as accommodating as possible for people with disabilities.
Yeah, it's also a reminder, and this is not a solution for right now, to think ahead when it comes to politics. So for instance, it is not true of all trees, but some trees, the reason their roots grow so high and disrupt things like that is because they're not properly cared for, they're not properly watered. So if you took a long-term view of it and put in the resources necessary to water all of these trees, then you might not have the disruption that has been so common in LA.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.